Al Hilal have offered Bruno Fernandes a £195 million deal. Is that too good for Bruno turning 31 to refuse? Of course, in Saudi, far less tax, pretty much tax free. Now, talking of Saudi money, Andre Onana has seen the offers Bruno Fernandes is getting, and Andre Onana wants to leave Manchester United. Reportedly, asked to leave Manchester United and wants a Saudi move. There is Saudi clubs interested in Onana. So we're going to talk about the record-breaking bid, record-breaking offer that Saudi could be putting in for Bruno. But Onana wants out. We've been linked to Milinkovic-Savic today in goal. I'm going to give you the latest on that. Also, other updates coming in. Harry Amas set to be offered a new deal, which is good. And talking of left wing backs, Diego Leon is set to travel to United in the first or second week of June to complete his deal. So, hello, and welcome back to Alice Talks Football. Welcome back to your 10-minute Manchester United news roundup. Well, I'm going to round up all the news that has come out today that you need to know that is relevant into 10 minutes. Starting with the biggest story, Bruno Fernandes. Al Hilal make a massive offer. Al Hilal have offered Bruno a 3-year contract worth over 65 million per season. So that's a £195 million deal. Other reports are saying he could be offered more and that they've offered him an 80 to £100 million a year deal. So Bruno's been offered anywhere really from 195 million to 300 million pounds to go to Saudi for 3 years. Like, that is a ridiculous offer. Now, Fernandes has not yet responded to the proposal, but it's believed to have about a week to respond. And Saudi clubs are willing to break the transfer record and sign him for over 120 million to get the deal done. Now, this is essentially in Bruno Fernandes' hands. Man United do not want to sell Bruno, but if Bruno is open to the move and Saudi break records and give United 150 million pounds for Bruno Fernandes, United are in a position where they probably can't do much about it, to be honest. Look, Bruno hasn't responded. I don't know what Bruno is going to respond with, because that is ridiculous money. Like, the way I see it is, if we aren't in the Champions League next season, would Bruno Fernandes turn down maybe 300 million pounds? Potentially, it could be at the highest, at the minimum, 195 million pounds to leave Man United. If we're in the Champions League next season, I think we keep Bruno. But if we're not in the Champions League next season, I don't know if Bruno turns this down. Like, if we're not in the Champions League, I don't know if Bruno turns this kind of deal down. I don't, because it's not like he's a young player. Yeah, I still think he's got 3-4 years at the top. I still think he deserves to be winning Premier League and Champions Leagues. That's the player he is. And I think he'd probably prefer to be at a club that's winning Premier League and Champions Leagues. But that sets up his family for generations. Like, is that too big for Bruno to turn down? Because we're talking potentially 300 million here. As Ben Jacobs said, Saudi could offer United a British transfer record fee to sign them. So we're talking 120 million plus. I think Casado is the current record at 115 million. Chris Wheeler and Nathan Salt said that United are confident that Bruno will remain central to Amorim's rebuild, so United feel that he won't go and that he's not for sale. I think if we get Champions League football, Bruno Fernandes stays, but I think if we don't win the Europa, maybe we're in trouble. They say that the mega money deal is 80 to 100 million a year, so they're looking at 240 million to 300 million a year. Even 195 million is ridiculous. Now, Bruno has not responded to this proposal, they've said again, and both reports deny a 60 million buyout clause in his new deal, which is good. Because I tell you what, there was actually a report coming out that there was a 60 million clause in Bruno Fernandes' contract to buy him out. And I was about to say, whoever's done that needs to be the sack, but that's not the case. For me, I do not want to sell Bruno Fernandes. I love Bruno Fernandes. I believe Bruno Fernandes loves Manchester United and does not want to leave Manchester United. But to lose Bruno Fernandes for 60 million, that would probably be the worst thing United have done. I think, if United get a record-breaking bid, it's a different situation. I think anything 150 million plus, United will think about it because they need the money. But I still think if this time next year we look all right, you could maybe afford to lose Bruno and look at replacing. But because there's so much to do this summer, I almost feel like we just can't lose Bruno because he ultimately might have saved us from relegation this year. Like, he's so good. It's his influence on and off the pitch that I think it's catastrophic if we lost Bruno Fernandes this summer. I think he's world class. I think he's top 10 player in the world. I still believe that. I think he's still got 3 to 4 years left at the top. I think it's vital to keep experience and leaders during this early rebuild phase. We need them. I think without Champions League football, I think he could be tempted by Saudi. That is a huge offer. He's turning 31. that could be his last huge offer. He's going to be tempted by it, especially if he's not going to play European football next season with Man United. He might want out. You know what I mean. Um, yeah, even with UCL, the money could be hard to ignore. I think losing him would be bad. We'd weaken our spine. I don't think there's a replacement. I think you would have to get Wharton and Palmer to potentially replace him in like two players. And Saudi, they're willing to make a record-breaking bid. They like Bruno. They want Bruno. Saudi are willing to do what it takes for Bruno. Of course, United are determined to resist any offers for Bruno. And, he's got a strong relationship with Amorim, and United feel he'll stay. So fingers crossed he does. But one player, and I don't know if it's because he's been hearing what Bruno's been offered, but one player that now wants out of Manchester United is Andre Onana. Andre Onana has asked his agent to find him a new club in Saudi Arabia. Manchester United want a new number one goalkeeper. So this was said by Santi. Onana has asked his agent to find him a new club in Saudi, and Man United want a number one goalkeeper. So while we don't know for sure where Bruno stands on his future, Andre Onana has essentially asked to leave Manchester United and wants to move to Saudi. Now, this is probably what a lot of United fans will want, probably what Man United will want, because with Onana having 26 million left on his book value, Manchester United want at least 30 million so they can bring a replacement in. Now, as Sully said here down below, and Sully's pretty credible with his information, he said that Ruben has said internally that he wants a new number one, and hopefully we can move Andre Onana on. I believe that United would like to sell Andre Onana to, of course, Saudi. I think the links to Milinkovic-Savic again today, even if he was a backup keeper, I think suggests that. I think Andre Onana is in a position where I think my stance and my belief from what we've been told is that Man United want a new keeper, but he's maybe fifth on the priority list. It's 10 striker, centre mid and centre back. That's the four priorities. But United would like a new keeper, but because it's lower down on the priority list, it's either if they have the funds, they bring someone in that's going to seriously challenge Onana. That's better than Bayendir. If they lose Onana, they have a bit more funds to get a first team keeper in. Now, our chances of bringing a first team keeper in massively depend on if Onana is willing to go to Saudi, and that is what Santi is reporting. That Onana wants the Saudi move. He also said last week, Santi, that Saudi Pro League side Neom are showing interest in Onana, and talks between them and his management have taken place, and he's open to leaving. But after he put this report out, Chris Wheeler put out a few hours later, and a few other United sources, that Onana wants to stay at United and is not pricing a goalkeeper, and that Amorim liked him. So to give you context, Chris Wheeler and Nathan Salt have suggested that Onana doesn't want to leave, that Amorim likes him. They've suggested that, where Santi is saying, look, Man United open to selling Onana open to leaving, you want Saudi. Now, interestingly, I think the Romano story today that came out this morning, I spoke about in my live stream, that United have added Banja Milinkovic-Savic to their shortlist for a new goalkeeper, is a suggestion that United do want a new keeper. Initial contacts, he said, have taken place for Torino goalkeeper, and he's a candidate for next season, waiting on price tag on move. Romano also said that Milinkovic-Savic is open to the Manchester United move, and I think the fact that we've had talks with Torino over Milinkovic-Savic, and I've said this before and I've reported this over the last month or two, United have gone out and spoken and reached out to goalkeepers. They have inquired about goalkeepers, and I think if United was so happy with Onana, they wouldn't be reaching out and inquiring about goalkeepers. I don't think Man United's priority is to replace Onana, but I think United want to bring in a better keeper, which is fair. Onana is better than Bayendir. Bayendir is nowhere near good enough. We need to bring someone in that's at least going to compete with Onana a bit better. Look how good Sergio Romero was as a second keeper. So I know there's some sources saying Onana wants to stay and that United aren't interested in selling Onana and Amorim likes him. But Santi's a credible source. Fabrizio Romano is obviously a really credible source. He's now saying, Santi, that Onana wants out. He's asked to leave. Romano is saying that we're looking at goalkeepers. I think, Onana won't leave unless it's Saudi money. I think the fact that Onana changed his agent and tried to get higher wages at United, despite being in poor form, he was annoyed that his wages went down 25% because we're not playing in the Champions League. It suggests that Onana wants a bit more money. I think if we win the Europa and win the Champions League next season, Onana's wages have got 25% and he might be more inclined to stay at United. But I think the fact that Onana changed agents, wanted the 25% of his salary back, says to me, Saudi are going to give him the money that he wants. He could be open to Saudi. Anyway, let's get into the final stories. Diego Leon is expected to travel to Manchester in the second week of June to join United. Pretty much everything's done with that deal, but United just do the final stuff at the end, announce him, bring him on pre-season tour. Young left wing back can challenge Amos, can challenge Dorgu. Good talent. And then, of course, talking of Amas, United are planning for new contract talks with Harry Amas. Club very happy with left back's progress, and discussions due to start in the club's next months. Anyway, I'm recording this at half time in the Inter Barcelona game, and I forgot to add this when talking about Onana, but Inter signed Jan Sommer for 7 million euros after selling Onana for 50 million euros. So I think there's a very strong possibility you can find a good goalkeeper for under 20 million euros. I like Joan Garcia, he's 21 million pounds. Milinkovic Savic, good shot stopper, better than Bayindir. Really could challenge Onana, probably could take his place. Obviously, a monster of a player. But yeah, let me know your thoughts down below on the news. Thank you for watching. Bye.